On February 9th of 2004, 21-year-old UMass student Maura Murray drove from her dorm in Amherst, Massachusetts to the White Mountains of New Hampshire.
At approximately 7:27 p.m., Maura spun out her 1996 Saturn on a hairpin turn on Route 112 in North Haverhill. There has never been a credible sighting of Maura since.
Maura is 5 foot 7 inches tall. She weighs 120 pounds, and she has brown hair and hazel eyes.
If you have any information regarding Maura's disappearance, please submit it to us,
The Murray family at MauraMurrayFamilyDirect@gmail.com.
or the New Hampshire State Police Cold Case Unit.
This is Missing Maura Murray. Welcome back to Missing Maura Murray. I'm Tim here today with Lance. Lance, how are you today?
I am doing a lot better than I deserve to be doing. How are you today, Tim?
I am doing fine, just fine on this early December week, Lance. And really, I'm doing great because we talked to Chloe Canter, one of our friends in this episode. She has a show on the Crawlspace Network that she does with her twin sister called True Crime Twins. And Chloe's been in our orbit for 3 or 4 years now. We work with her closely. She's kind of like our in-house psych person, or really the person we go to bounce ideas off of when it comes to psychological questions. So this is a really great interview, really kind of turned into almost like a group therapy session with Chloe.
You know, it sure did. Chloe does a really great job with her sister Melina on True Crime Twins, and they will be coming back in the new year. They went on a little bit of a hiatus, but they're coming back strong with some new cases. And this interview, like you said, is an unintentional therapeutic session. We break down some topics that have been sticking in our sides like a thorn, and you have to pull these things into the light, right? You need to talk about them, and you need to figure out why they're important, if they're important at all, and I guess the meaning behind it all. If you're looking into Maura's case, every detail needs to be flushed out to the point where you don't have anything left to say about it. I know that sounds like it could be boring if you're wrapping up everything in this minutia, but it's really not. Everything does kind of mean something, and that's not hyperbolic in any way.
That's true. And really, we said group therapy. I want to sort of widen that and really kind of say community therapy, online community therapy, because I think this will help the entire online community who's been following the everyday happenings, because, Lance, we're just as confused as everybody else.
Yeah, talk about that word confusion. I think I mentioned it half a dozen times in this interview that I'm not upset or I'm not trying to accuse. I'm just confused. And it's fine to admit that you're confused because it's the only way you can untangle this knot.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of we always bare our souls on these airwaves, Lance, and when we don't have anything else to say, I mean, that's what we'll say because that's the truth. That's how we feel right now, and so I hope people out there listening can relate in some way, or at least are assisted by hearing us and us discuss our confusion with the online community, the way that things have been going in the past few weeks.
Yeah, and Chloe is a really great person to be that conduit between what it's like stepping back and looking at the entire situation, looking at the community, which she does. She monitors it. She doesn't interact that much, but she monitors it all the time, and she absorbs it, and she makes assessments based on what she's seen. And it's great to have her be that in-between factor for you and I to go to, because she does have that psychology background.
Okay, everybody, so we're going to throw it to the interview with Chloe Canter. Make sure to subscribe to True Crime Twins. It is coming back in January of 2021, so don't miss that. Thanks a lot for listening. Welcome back to the podcast, Chloe Canter. How's it going, Chloe?
I am doing fantastic. It's great to be back. How are you?
Can't complain. Actually, it's great that you're back, but you're always kind of here. We reference you so many times because you've done so much work on Crawl Space with Brianna Maitland, and you've done so much great work with your sister on True Crime Twins, Melina. So we're always sort of referencing you, even though we haven't talked on air for a while. I will welcome you back, but you still are here in spirit.
Well, thank you. I'm glad that I have a sort of presence without actually being there, especially in these times of quarantine and isolation. You know, I'm hoping to resume our show after our little hiatus for season 2 in January, and I do also intend to start blogging again. I just took a little time off with my busy life at the moment.
Okay, great. And so True Crime Twins is the podcast that you do with your twin sister, Melina, and you say that you guys are returning in January.
Excited. We already have a queue of cases that we're thinking of covering.
Okay, very excited. And tell me about the blog. I know that you were recently on our good friend Bill Thomas and Kristen Dilley's podcast, Mind Over Murder, talking about the Brianna Maitland case. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. Yeah, I was really happy to talk to those two. I really enjoy their show, and any opportunity to talk about the Brianna Maitland case, I'm happy to be a part of. So yeah, they were very complimentary of my blog. They actually said that it really helped, clarify the case, and that is the whole philosophy behind it, is just sort of communicate what happened, communicate everything in a clear and concise way to the audience. So it was a great conversation that we had. But yeah, for people who don't know, it's just a kind of like a summary of the case and kind of making different points and unpacking certain points of the investigation that I've found to be compelling or I felt to be relevant to discuss.
Well, that's wonderful you went on their show. I'm a little jealous, though, because Bill Thomas is such a scoundrel. Him and Miss Dilley over there, they will pick any guest that we have on, any connection we have, just for their own benefit. So I'm just kidding. They're awesome people. I'm so glad you were able to talk to them. It was a great episode.
Well, maybe I shouldn't be saying this on air, but I've also officially stolen him from you as like a friend. So you're not friends anymore. He's now my friend.
But Chloe, one of your biggest contributions to the Brianna Maitland case was an interview you had with Keely LaCrosse, which I think stands today as kind of one of the only ones that we have in our circle, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, she really hasn't spoken to any media sources in a long time. I think she maybe spoke to Hank Albarelli in one of his old articles back from, I think, 2005 or 2006. But since then, she's kind of been silent. So it was a great opportunity. I broke it down in my blog in sort of 2 parts. She explained the fight where she punched Brianna 3 weeks before her disappearance and a lot of other elements. She was in that social circle, very connected to a lot of people that we're talking about. And she described herself as one of Brianna's best friends at Enosburg Falls High School. Obviously, that friendship dissolved, but her perspective I found was very valuable, particularly because her name just comes up time and time again. People are suspicious. People have questions.
And what was it like approaching her and trying to secure not an interview, but even just a conversation? It
was difficult. I think that there was hesitance and reluctance on her end, and I understand. One of the things that we talked about was it's difficult for her to see what comes up when she Googles herself. So I think participating in this at all was something that she was reluctant to do. So it took a long time to actually get her on the phone. But once I did, she was pretty cooperative and gave me a lot of her time.
Very cool. And can you tell us a little bit about your background?
Yeah, sure. I met you guys, I think, back in 2017. I was working as a psychiatric counselor and just had a personal interest in true crime for basically as long as I can remember. So I ended up reaching out to you two after you had made a sort of call to action on your show about if anyone has any research or any information or observations, now is the time to sort of come forth with it. So I took that as an opportunity to introduce myself to my favorite podcasting celebs, and it kind of developed from there.
Well, how cool. And the rest is history.
I like how your background starts with us.
Well, I guess relevant to this conversation.
Nope. It's in the books now. You did not exist before this podcast.
I guess not.
And can you tell us a little bit about your twin sister before we get to the Maura Murray case? But is your sister? She's in nursing school, right? Your twin sister Melina?
Yeah, she just finished. She hasn't been pinned yet, but she's all done. She's just that much closer to getting her RN. So next is, I think, her NCLEX exam, so she can become licensed or registered, and then she'll be a nurse. She finished the UMass program that Maura Murray was in, actually.
Did you talk to her about the nursing school and how it could connect, how any intel she gathered from going to the UMass nursing school could be applied to the Maura Murray case?
We have, and I wish that I had things fresh in the top of my head, because we had those conversations much more frequently at the beginning when she started the program, because that's when she was really making a lot of the observations. But one of the things that's fresh is if you miss a clinical, at least this is how it is now, even one, you have to repeat the course. So what my sister was saying was she believed that, Maura missing a whole week of clinicals was a really big deal, and she would have to find some way to make it up, or she would have to repeat the courses. That's kind of her understanding of how it works now. I don't know if that's how it was then, but it kind of put even more weight to Maura's decision to be gone for a week, or that that's at least what she said to the professors, she'd be gone a week.
Yeah, pretty interesting information there. It's always cool to get a firsthand account from someone who went through something similar, even though it seems like it might not be relatable to her actual disappearance. All of the moments that lead up to that still put you in a frame of mind that is relevant to how you approach this case. So I think hearing from someone with firsthand experience is always a good thing.
Yes, I would agree with that.
Well, we should reconnect with Melina when you guys relaunch your show, or you guys come back for season 2. And we can,
absolutely.
Yeah, we can delve into that a little bit more. I think that's interesting. So, Chloe, have you been following some of what's been going on in the Maura Murray case, particularly in the online communities?
I have been. I do my best to stay in the know.
Okay, and how do you? What are any observations you've made recently?
Things are heating up lately. That's, I guess, the best way to summarize it. There have been ongoing tensions with different schools of thought in the community that have become, with time increasingly heated, personal, antagonistic, and I can just be forthcoming with who I'm referring to. We have, you two, we have Aaron Larkin, and you three don't see eye to eye and disagree with a lot of things in the case. And I think the biggest point of contention, and correct me if I'm wrong, has been her association with Bill and Sharon Roush and her ongoing efforts to defend him. And, she'll say, oh, I don't defend Bill. But when you go back and look at her Twitter, she's clearly repeatedly defending the actions of Bill, or, saying he has an ironclad alibi. She does seem to be on his defense, which has been inexplicable to a lot of people, including me, including you guys. And so it's almost become this very divisive situation. And recently they released an email that Sharon Roush had written to Helena Murray that really ended up making Sharon and Bill and Aaron by association not look so good. It's honestly, the decision to release the email was pretty questionable.
What is it in your opinion? You mentioned Twitter. What is it in your opinion that motivates this to go to Twitter? That this is public, that this can't be something that is dealt with more on a one-on-one basis? Let me be more clear about that. What is your opinion with this not being able to be dealt with, not on a one-on-one basis? And I'm not speaking about with Aaron calling Tim or myself. I mean, there's like 47 people that sometimes and more who contribute to that Twitter thread, is it something that's like a snowball effect?
I mean, you guys would sort of have to be the ones to speak to whether or not attempts have been made to work things out one-on-one. But I mean, I guess I can just ask you now, have you guys tried to work things out privately, or?
It's kind of hard to see eye to eye directly in that, I guess.
Well, I mean, we did speak to Bill one-on-one. We have spoken to Aaron, but every time the conversation breaks down, and there's something weird to me about speaking with somebody so close to Maura's personality, so close to her as a person. There's something weird to me about that person needing to have us earn the respect to talk to him, earn the trust. Like, there was this whole trust building process before Bill could come on the show and speak publicly to thousands of people who really want to know what he has to say so that they can stop looking into certain things or maybe move to another aspect of the case because of something he might say publicly on the show. I'm so confused why all of this is just left to 164 words, spurts, instead of something that could be out there. This platform is designed for that, and it's always confused me.
Yeah, that's a great point. Yeah, we did connect one-on-one before the summer, before things kind of really blew up, and then there really hasn't been attempts to connect directly at that point since then.
And I guess to Lance's point, it sounds like you guys have been trying to get him on the show from the beginning, and there was a trust building process, and that obviously didn't pan out. And are you trying to say, Lance, that you've found it just like a little bit unseemly, that it was kind of this difficult dance, but he's willing to, talk on Twitter?
Yeah. I mean, it's a good word you just used, and I always fall back to just confused. That's what I always end up feeling, is very confused. And I just want to be clear, it's not like we ever tried to get him on the show. We've actually never solicited him to be on the show. We have said to him, if you ever want to come on, obviously that's an open door policy. Obviously, the boyfriend of Maura Murray can come on our show. And after private conversations and him actually saying, well, I just want to make sure that, I earn your trust, or you guys earn my trust, or something like that. Like, we needed to prove ourselves to him, but everything can blow up on Twitter and leave people to come up with their own interpretations of what he's saying, because you have a limited amount of characters on Twitter and just like a limited amount of people that are going to be looking at it because it gets buried.
I mean, he has more control.
That's a good point. I just wanted to add that we did reach out to him for the first time, I think, back in 2015. I want to say the fall or winter, late 2015, early 2016, to ask him if he wanted to come on. As you said, Lance sort of gave him an open door policy. And, he did reply back then saying, like, thanks or whatever, I'll think about it. And then it was years since we heard from him. I think, until maybe December 2018. I want to say, when we heard from him again, only a few months before he was indicted. So we do have questions, because he does seem to have some answers about Maura's headspace, things that he's never answered. I feel a little exasperated too, Lance, when we talk about this, because I really just want him, and now his mom, I really just want them to be helpful. And I feel bad about it. This does not make me feel good to say this. I want them to be helpful. And I regret the situation that it's in right now. I went too far recently on a Patreon, and I apologize, and I regret that. That didn't help things. But if they can still be helpful, we as a community want them to help.
And in their minds, I think they feel that they have been helpful. So it's just a convergence in perception. They think, well, we talked to the police early on. I actually have no idea what they think. This is obviously speculation, but I think in their minds, I seriously doubt that Bill and Sharon Roush walk around every day thinking that they've been unhelpful in Maura's case. I'm sure in their minds, they think that they've been very helpful, and that going on your show or cooperating with new media platforms is not necessarily helpful. I think Bill probably prefers tweeting because he has more control of exactly what's being put out. He probably feels more comfortable on Aaron's show because clearly she's not challenging his sense of reality at all. You would. And she's not going to ask him questions that he doesn't want to answer. In his mind, the way that he portrays himself on Twitter is that he's been very forthcoming. He'll answer any questions. Hey, I'm doing a Q&A about Maura. But he's not answering all the questions, and the questions that he's not answering are the ones that we really want to hear most.
Yeah, and we did do a few episodes recently, and we sort of brainstormed some questions for him, and he seemed like he would be willing to answer these questions. He was writing on Twitter. He was putting a link to his website saying, "Hey, submit a question here." But I just think people didn't want to do that. And I don't want to stop anyone from going to his site and submitting a question if someone wants to. But I think with all the craziness in the online community, attacks, sometimes hacking and things like that, people didn't want to go there. And so, like, I guess Bill can't blame people for that. But he does have Twitter. You know, some of those questions were asked on the show. And he has Twitter. He can answer some of these via Twitter if he wants to.
But he's not. He's making it that extra step, which, like you said, people don't necessarily want to take.
That's right. Yeah.
And it still exists. Like the offer is still there when it's appropriate for Bill. Because it would be nice down the road, if things work out, we could do something like a Get Vocal live show with him if he really wanted to do a Q&A. However, things have gone in such a direction with the issues that he's facing legally that we're not comfortable at this time having someone in his position speak about anything in regards to a missing person case. Because what he's saying on Twitter is what he wants to say at this time, maybe what he's legally allowed to say at this time. I personally don't want anything to happen to anyone's outstanding case as they're awaiting, I guess, trial. I mean, I'm not even speaking specifically about Bill. Anybody who's awaiting trial, I really wouldn't want to have come on the show and be responsible for something that is said to damage either side of a case. So,
not that you could have him if you wanted him.
Well, I guess you're right.
But Chloe, we need the ratings.
No, I do want to go back to a point that Lance made, and you were talking about how everything has to be done on Twitter and publicly, and I really just wonder if it's done for people to see. You know, it's not for a private conversation. It's for display. It's almost theatrics in a way.
Oh, I definitely would agree with that.
Yeah. And,
absolutely. I think, and this, I hope this isn't like rude, but when you tweet something in a part of that thread or a part of that exchange and it gets a bunch of favorites, you know, it's like you have people on your, it's kind of like a force of the community almost, showing who is subscribing to which side, which is crazy because it's like literally a sideshow. But that's kind of where we are right now. And you do see here, I don't want to get sidetracked. We'll focus on what we're talking about right now, but it's just when you are breaking down these threads, it's kind of interesting how certain things can kind of contradict previous statements.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's a ton of fake accounts that come out there and attack, and it's definitely confusing. But it does seem like some of those accounts are obviously, as we talked about earlier, kind of supporting Bill and that side. And one of those accounts that we were really wondering what the heck was going on with, actually, was an account named Carlo DeWitt recently that has been out there since January, and some people noticed some of the writing from Carlo DeWitt was similar to Sharon Rausch's writing from an email that she had sent to Helena Murray back in 2008, which was inexplicably posted by Aaron Larkin on Twitter. And I say inexplicably because I do not know how she came into possession of that, and I do not know why she posted that or what the purpose was. Lance, again, if this was to have been done directly to settle some dispute, obviously that's a problem. I think you can see why, like, because it was sort of this just baited John Smith in regards to this email. It was very, very strange happening on Twitter.
It was, and it didn't end up making the Roush family look very good to be threatening to sue Maura's aunt or cousin for accessing the cell phone records of their beloved's boyfriend. It's like to send such an angry email. I think it made everyone very suspicious about, why are you so fervently trying to hide something that, Bill is later on saying on Reddit, oh, we made those public. That's why we made those public, so people could, research. It's like, no, that is a lie, because your mom was furious that those came out. And what I'm wondering is why. What on there did she not want coming out? I think we could speculate. There's a lot of different things I think that she wouldn't want coming out, but it's just kind of showing an effort to conceal, which is really, really disconcerting.
It's odd, right? And the timestamp on that was 2008. So 4 years after Maura's disappearance. And this was, and stop me if I'm incorrect on any of this. I think I talked about this during a Patreon or something. The timestamp was 2008. Sharon Roush is working hard to find for the whereabouts of Maura Murray. She's trying very hard because it is tearing her family apart. Right? Stop me if any of this is not accurate. It's her son Bill. It's had such a negative impact on his life, and he's devastated by it. And these phone records came by way of John Smith, and wherever he got them is not 100% known, right?
Right. Well, he claims that he got them from Helena Murray, and so yeah, I guess you're kind of paraphrasing the email, but yeah, it's basically, it talks about Billy's privacy and how Sharon did not want those phone records to go to John Smith and for him to work on them as a private investigator.
Right. Okay. So at that time in 2008, John Smith had not done an interview with us because we didn't exist, and he had not known about James Renner. James Renner never had not started his blog yet. As far as John Smith's existence in the Maura Murray world was concerned, he was a private investigator working on her disappearance at the behest of Fred Murray, right?
Yeah, I believe that's accurate.
And the fact that a private investigator would obtain phone records which would possibly give both grieving families some answer, maybe, as to the whereabouts of Maura Murray, because Maura was on Sharon's phone bill. She was under the phone plan. They might know where she was going, what was leading up to her disappearance. Did she perhaps call somebody on her way up to New Hampshire? Did she call anybody? Maybe there was a phone call that was missed after 7:27 on that night. Who knows? But the investigator had the phone records. I'm not a private investigator, but that to me sounds a lot like one of the first things a modern day private investigator would do is try to find the cell phone records of the missing person. I don't know if there was a conversation before this email was sent, but this email should not have read like this. It should have read like, hey, totally get why you're doing this, to find the person that my son was in love with and engaged to be engaged to. I'm curious where you got the phone records. I understand that this isn't an invasion of privacy. You're doing your job at the behest of Fred Murray. Why is it a threat for a lawsuit? Legitimately, she threatens to sue. I worked for a law firm for 17 years.
Yeah.
That's, to say that's how easy I can get a lawyer.
I mean, anyone can get a lawyer, but she's saying that these lawyers have a personal connection to her and therefore would sue this grieving family at even more of an intense rate or whatever. It was just like an obvious threat. Like, oh, these are my friends. They're not just my lawyers. They're my friends, and they care about me.
Yeah, let me read that line specifically. She says, "I want all of you as well as this person to be advised that I will seek legal action against any person, persons, or group that in any way violates the privacy of Billy or any member of our family." Right. And then she goes on to say, "Oh, we'll also assist any member of Maura's family to seek legal action too." But obviously that line there speaks for itself.
I'm a protective mother. Like I get protecting your kid, but I don't understand why a couple of pages of a phone record showing who he called that day is such an atrocious violation of privacy that it outweighs the importance of locating someone that she said was like her daughter. You know, she said Maura couldn't have been more of a she couldn't have been more of a daughter to me if I'd given birth to her. She had said something like that. So it's like, where's your fierce protection of her?
It's really confusing. Again, I'm going back to confusing. I don't have children. Tim and Chloe, you two both have daughters. I'm sorry to use this comparison, but if one of your daughters went missing and you hired a private investigator to obtain the phone records of her fiance, and then another family member reached out to you and was freaking out, like, or reached out to that investigator and was freaking out, like, would that make any sense in your head?
No, and I commend Helena for the grace that she must have shown in that moment, because I would have been furious, as I think any parent would have been.
The more we talk about it, the more furious I get.
Yeah, I think there's a big difference between blood too. Direct lineage. In reality, right? Sharon and Bill, they knew Maura well, but only really for a few years. Her family knew her entire life, so that's really not comparable.
Oh, of course not. But I'm saying that it's like she was family when it suited them.
Yeah.
You know, she was saying that she couldn't have been more my daughter if I'd given birth to her, and you know they were engaged. You know, she was the only one that was pushing that they were engaged, or that they were engaged to be engaged.
Right.
So she's saying that they're family, but then, you know, we know who she's really trying to protect. But I just, you know, if it was my son, why would you be behaving that way unless something strange is going on? I don't see any reason to hide things if it's helpful to an investigation.
Yeah, I mean, she really, again, says it right here. I want to read the line right at the near the end. She says, "The bottom line is that Billy has suffered enough." So you're right, Chloe. You make a great point, because that is not the bottom line here.
That's the bottom line to her, but
Right.
It's not the bottom line.
I can't even. I mean, maybe something changed from 2004 to 2008, but I just keep going back to anyone in that position with children. Would you react that way?
But why does she care? I feel like that's the bigger question. Like, you know what I mean? If Ava's boyfriend went missing and her phone records from that day went public and I knew she did nothing wrong, I wouldn't care. Like, I mean that.
Well, yeah. I mean, if it came to your attention that a private investigator had those phone records, you'd probably want to know, right? You'd probably want to know the calls leading up to and the calls after. Would lawsuit even cross your mind?
No, but then again, I can't be projecting my opinions and my reactions and experiences onto somebody else. I just find it very confusing and almost impossible to relate to.
Open door policy for Sharon, by the way. Just want to say that. I mean, I have nothing against this woman.
Absolutely.
I really don't. I'm just sometimes my frustration and I get like furious. It's not so much with the person. It's just with my own confusion and trying to figure out what the mindset is at the time. And that is, it's close to Maura's disappearance, but it's far enough removed where you've been able to take a breath and process it.
Well, it does appear that Sharon was writing about Maura's disappearance since, I believe, 2004 on a forum called Web Sleuths under the name Peabody. And that is kind of notable because she sort of distances herself as Sharon, even though there's a bit of a connection, an obvious connection there. She's like, "Oh, I know Sharon." So it really seems pretty apparent that it is Sharon Rausch on Web Sleuths. So yeah. So Lance, to your point, I am confused as well, downright a bit exasperated with what's going on, because everything that they're doing is saying how helpful and things, but they have a chance to actually be helpful again, and I don't want to, this isn't a roast. I don't want to turn this into anything like that. I want to be respectful. Sharon absolutely has an open door policy. It's definitely confusing when you're trying to figure it out or see where someone's coming from, especially when they're so close to us. We've literally been communicating with them on Twitter, apparently blocking them. I mean, I had Carlo blocked for months, and it was kind of just obvious that it was a fake account, And so, I don't know.
Just, you were talking about the Peabody account on Web Sleuths and how someone actually even called that person out and said, wait a minute, first you said that you were, Sharon/Maura's future mother-in-law, and now you're saying you're not. And she kind of put in this weird, rushed, not helpful explanation. Oh, well, that post was from the perspective, like it didn't make sense. It just seemed really dishonest. And then we have this fake account, and if it really is Sharon, that's, I don't know what else they're tweeting besides defenses of Bill using shorthand initials and using exact verbiage like Maura's missing and pro-Trump propaganda. I don't know what else there was, but I mean, it's just a pattern of dishonesty online. And again, like what's going on here? Why are you being dishonest on these websites concerning this missing person? And we don't know what happened to Maura, but I would argue that Maura suffered significantly more than Bill. Her suffering hopefully was brief, and again, we have no idea what happened. But Maura's the victim here. Maura's the one who crashed her car and never talked to anyone again.
That's right. Yeah, and the post from Peabody, I think that you were referencing, Peabody does say, I have never, she says here, she's talking about a different person's disappearance. She says, I've never forgotten about Joanna's missing, partly because, as with Maura Murray, my future daughter-in-law, there have been no leads. And then she goes on and signs it Peabody. So yeah, it's pretty clear. And then she backs away from that in different posts, saying, oh no, I know Maura's future mother-in-law. So yeah, I think transparency is needed, and I don't think that's too much to ask.
I certainly don't think it's too much to ask. I mean, you're putting yourselves out there, but like I said, it's only on their terms in a situation where they're in control. Like, just when you go back and you watch that Disappeared episode on ID Discovery, which exposed the case to so many people, Sharon's the narrator. You don't see the boyfriend's mom being the narrator. She was calling the shots. The direction of that episode, I think, was really in her hands. She was almost in it more than Fred.
As you monitor this, Chloe, is there any common threads that you see in regards to people who are not supportive of our show, people who are not supportive of what seemingly is a good-willed attempt at progress?
The common thread seems to be, support of Aaron and Bill. I mean, I'm sure people have lots of reasons for disliking you guys. Like, how could I even summarize them? But that seems to be a common thread.
Well, that's fair. I mean, yeah, I guess, Lance, let me add a little caveat there. I mean, it's like a blind supporter, right? I mean, we've been objective. I'd like to think in looking at Bill and looking at his legal troubles and upcoming problems, and as we talked about, we kind of put a hold on talking to him on the show for the time being until this is settled. So it is weird when there are people who use Bill's survivor or ex in shorthand, uses her initials or her last name like Carlo did back in January, and tweets blindly supporting of Bill, and that's the part that's weird, and I do think if you look at those accounts, some of them have conspiracy theories that they push politically too, and I don't want to. Yeah, the party affiliation doesn't matter, actually. Right.
So one of the threads that I want to address and see if there's anything telling about it is the one that involves Tim and I actively engaging with members of this community and having them on the show, even engaging in conversations over email or off the air Zoom calls or Skype calls, something where it's face to face, I would say 95 to 99% of the people that we've spoken with who have contributed online, when we ask them, hey, do you want to get on a Zoom call or a Skype call because we want to see their face and we want to hear their voice, they say yes. And then they join in on our Get Vocal nights on Thursday, and then they message us on Twitter. They'll DM us, and all of that conversation is very productive. There's another thread where the other side of this has no face, has no real name, will not come out and talk to us face to face, will delay things like that, will block you, and will. And again, I don't want to get into party affiliations, but they will be supportive of some very suspect topics and alt topics. Like it's very extreme, almost very extreme.
Yeah, it's very, very extreme, actually. Yeah, you can say that. It's absolutely extreme. It's like anti-mask stuff and things like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Exactly. So it's that side of things.
It's weird to be in that that group, I guess. But sort of the tell from Sharon Rausch's email to Helena that was posted on Twitter a few weeks ago, and then Peabody's account, and then this Carlo DeWitt Twitter account was this the way that she wrote Maura's missing, and not Maura's disappearance or when Maura went missing or something like that. And as we read just a few minutes ago, she used it in another case too. She wrote Joanna's missing. So it seems pretty rare, sort of like a little bit of like a linguistic calling card, if you will.
Yeah, I would say so. I haven't seen that verbiage used before or after. Have you?
No.
I mean, I don't know. I think I've seen people use that by accident, use that apostrophe S by accident, but not repeatedly. I really, this is the only situation and the circumstance where it stood out from seemingly different people about the same thing.
Yeah. I mean, it's a verb, right? She's using it as a noun. Is that
a possessive
noun?
What it is?
Right. And like, I think you can use vanish like that, or vanishing, right? Maura's vanishing you could use.
Yes.
And then she also vanished at one point, but Maura's missing just seems like grammatically awkward.
And is it always the apostrophe S, or is it Maura?
Oh, it's both. She wrote it, and she did write it. Maura's missing in the email. Yeah, Maura's apostrophe missing. She's also done MM's missing as well, or at least Carlo did.
Right. So these different monikers have done it, both MM and Maura's, and they're from seemingly different people.
Well, in my opinion, I think they're the same person. But
but the presentation is not the same person. Even if it's somebody not related to this case at all, it's weird. It's beyond the weird. And if it is somebody related to this case, it's even weirder. And the fact that we have offered a platform to anybody to come on as let's vet you, let's come on. If you have something productive to say, even if it's controversial, come on. We can talk about it, because you bring something into the light, and that's when it's the most honest. Bring it into the light. Don't keep it in the dark.
I think you're right, and I think there is progress that could be made with transparent behavior going forward. So we do hope for that. It's not fun to be at odds with people like this. Personally speaking, not my favorite thing to do.
No, and you know what, Chloe, I'm interested to hear your point of view on this. The difference between somebody like Alden Olson, who used to be the biggest troll in this community. In my head, he's no longer the biggest troll in the community by a long shot in my head anymore. He at least put his face out there. What do you think about that? What's the difference there?
Well, Alden's complicated, and I don't want to talk about Alden too much, but I just think Alden is a little bit more complicated. He definitely was never ashamed of associating his identity with some of the behaviors out there, but the menacing videos, maybe he should have been, but he never was. But I think maybe these other people who are maybe more established in society and in their professional careers have more of a vested interest, and maybe have more of more insight that the behavior is considered unacceptable, but they don't care. They're going to continue doing it, but they don't want it to ruin their lives. So that's where the anonymity comes in. But Alden wasn't as concerned about those things.
Well said. And I want another crack at getting your opinion on something, Chloe, and this is the difference between a family like the Maitlands, who Bruce has suffered, and his wife, the whole family has suffered a tragic disappearance as well, Brianna Maitland. And Bruce has worked his ass off with us, with Michelle, with Jillian, with the Jen, the entire board, and all of the volunteers with private investigations for the missing in order to help families that were in and are in the situation he was in and he is currently in to make something better. We've offered this platform up. We've offered what we do for Maura and the Murrays to do something better. We've offered fundraisers, raised money for searches, and said we'd raise money for scholarships and raise money for groundskeeping for trails that Maura would want to keep to have kept clean and hikeable. Why is there such a divide between the community that remains faceless and in the dark? Why can't they say, okay, I see what you're trying to do. I'll put this behind me and let's try to do something positive. Does that make sense? And what is the difference there?
Well, again, it's speaking to someone else's motives. I would completely agree with you that all of this energy that's being put into antagonizing others, trying to defile someone's character, which, let's be honest, I think that's what the purpose of releasing that email was. The idea was to make John Smith look bad, but it ended up not. It ended up making Sharon and Bill look bad. I think once we stop these, character assassinations, once people stop referring to different schools of thought or different podcasts as competitors or competition, and instead focus on the bottom line, which is this innocent 21-year-old nursing student who lost her life for no reason, I think the better off we'll all be.